Hi, welcome back. I hope you're enjoying the series of Leadership Live called First Break All the Rules by Marcus Buckingham. And we are talking about a mountain climb. And I want to continue this week with the next camp. But before we do that, I want you to think back. I gave you a couple of assignments over these past 2 weeks, not only to think back when you were a new associate, but also in your career and how that worked for you and the things and the challenges that you met that maybe you felt could have been done better. And then I also tasked you with meeting with each of your teammates, because if you don't talk to them, you're never going to know exactly what they're thinking or where we're at. And we want to make sure that we do that, because if we don't, then we aren't going to be meeting their needs and answering these questions. So this week we are going to talk about Camp 2. Now I will tell you right now, this camp is the make or break camp. If we do not meet their needs in this camp, chances are they're going to leave, because there is somebody else out there who will. So let's talk a little bit about what this looks like. Think about the job that you're in. The key component here is, do I belong? I've looked at a lot of organizations that I've worked at, and I've tried to decide whether or not I belong there. If I don't feel like I belong or that I'm valued in that organization, you can trust me, and your team is doing the same thing, that we're going to be looking elsewhere, because we're all in search of a place to feel valued and appreciated, and that we're really making a difference. And so in this one, we're going to talk a lot about what we need to do in order to make sure they don't leave. I think you've all heard the old saying is, I'll train them and they leave. Well, here's the downside to that saying too, is if you don't train them and they'll stay, and then you don't have the quality people that you're looking for that are going to take you to the next level. So let's talk a little bit about this. In this camp, you've asked some pretty difficult questions of yourself and your other team members, and you're really starting to evaluate the contribution that you're making here and whether that contribution is being valued. Your perspective widens. You're going to start looking around, and you're going to start looking at your coworkers and deciding whether or not you fit. We do it all the time, whether we realize it or not. I know we did it in high school. I didn't belong to the in crowd in high school, but I always wanted a place to fit. It's the same way in our jobs. We surround ourselves with people where we fit, and we're going to do the same thing with our career. You also start looking at your basic value system. This is where our basic value system is tested. We want to make sure that we've aligned our values with the organization. And if those two don't mesh or they don't meet, then we do have a problem, and we're going to have what we call cognitive dissonance. And we want to make sure that we're not constantly in battle with ourselves as we try to make ourselves fit. In this day and age, people aren't going to make themselves fit. They're just going to go find out another place where they do fit. So let's look at the 4 questions that actually measure Camp 2. The first one is, at work, do my opinions seem to count? If I'm giving opinions every single day and nobody's listening to them, or they're poo-pooed, or somebody laughs at me, or they're discounted in any way, they're going to remember that, and they're going to take that in, because at this camp they're weighing these options. And if I've given you a lot of ideas and none of them you've listened to or you've even taken action on, I'm going to think, yeah, I'm not valued here. I probably should go find some place that I am. And that's when we're going to start to get in trouble. The second one is probably the key component here. Does the mission or purpose of my company make me feel my job is important? And I've talked about this throughout all of this. If people don't feel that they're contributing something of value, or that their contribution is important to the success of the organization, people are going to leave. And we don't want them to leave. We've invested time and money and energy in these individuals, and if they're good, you're going to want to do what you need to do to keep them. Now, I'm not saying I'm offered the sun, moon, and stars and give them everything they ask for. Most times, those are the things that people don't really care about. They say they do because it's easy, but what they really care about is the things that we're talking about in these stages. And sometimes you have to scrape off the top part and dig a little deeper, and scrape it off and dig a little deeper till you get to what really is important to each individual. And trust me, it can change as our lives change. But if we are concentrating on meeting the needs of our associates by these questions, then I think you're going to see a difference, and you're going to get people to want to stay. And that is the key components. One of the challenges I faced in this past year is that my value system didn't not necessarily mesh with the mission or vision of the organization. It actually didn't mesh with some of the ethical issues that some of the people in the organization were doing. and my value system will not be compromised. I have fought hard and long to be who I am, and I can look in the mirror. I can't go home at night and say, gosh, I just don't think that was a good move. Granted, I'm going to make mistakes, but I don't want my ethics or my integrity to suffer because of it. And so that's what I'm going to be looking at. The other thing your team's watching is, are your coworkers committed to doing quality work? Believe it or not, we're looking at each other and deciding whether or not they're carrying their weight. What happens in this stage that can really impact us and our teams is when you've got one person who's doing the majority of the work and the rest of them are slacking off, having fun, not really working, and there is no disciplinary action to those people. Those good ones are only going to do that work for so long before they go, you know what, I'm done. I'm not going to do this anymore because I'm not getting paid enough to do all of their jobs. I'm barely getting paid enough to do my job. And that's when the money piece starts to come in there, because they're going to be looking at that and they're going to go, I'm making this much. They've been here longer. They're making this much. I'm doing all the work and they get more pay. Whether it's true or not, that's where our mind is going to go. And you know what? If they're doing a lot of that work, there's a company out there that's dying to get their hands on them. And we don't want them to walk out. And granted, I realize that in a leadership position, we can't always tell them what's going on or what we're doing, or the fact that we do know what's going on and we're working on it. So a lot of times when my team would say, hey, you know, what is going on here? I'd say, you know what? I know where you're coming from. I just need to tell you I'm working on it. And that's all I can tell you. And they'd say, well, why can't you tell me what's going on? I'll say, well, would you want me talking about what's going on with you to everyone else on the team? Well, no, of course not. Well, there you go. So we want to look at that. We want to let them know that, yes, we see what's going on. We are working on it. And please give us some time. And generally, they're good. They're smart enough to know that stuff happens behind the scenes that they don't get to be privy to. And then finally, the last one is, do I have a best friend at work? Believe it or not, if we want to belong, we have to have somebody there that we can vent to, that we can count as a friend, we can go have lunch with, that we can go to their desk if we're having a rough day and sit down and say, hey, I just need to talk, I need to vent, I need to get this out. If we don't do that, unfortunately, we're going to go out somewhere else, and we really want them to find a best friend at work, because it makes them want to come to work. It makes them feel like they've got some kind of camaraderie going on. They belong, and that's hugely important. People don't stay where they don't fit or where they don't belong. They just don't. We are really part of what I call a transition society right now. You know what, if I don't like this job, there's 6 other ones out there. I know I can get one of those. And it isn't, people aren't even looking at resumes that much anymore to look for gaps like we used to, or look for the fact that they keep moving on. And so we're in a transition. We want to make sure that we're not transitioning the good people out. I'm going to tell you right now, transition the bad ones out and keep the good ones, because let those bad ones be somebody else's problem, because we've got enough on our plates, right? And that does happen. And sometimes it takes a long time. And if we can't flip them, if we can't really refocus those individuals, are they really there to stay, or are they just there to collect that paycheck until the next job comes along? And I hate to say it, because I don't really think there's a lot of people out there that do this, but sometimes they're just looking for the next way to get an unemployment check. And that hurts. That really does hurt. And I think that is probably less than 1% of the population. I think the rest of them just need guidance so that we can make them fit. And you know what? If I've done everything and they don't fit and they don't believe they fit, then I'm going to be the one helping them to find where they do fit. Because people who believe they belong and fit come and give you 150% every single day. They want to be there. They don't have to be there. They want to be there because they know that they're making a difference and that they're contributing. And those things are important. Our focus needs to be on keeping those high quality team members, because if we don't keep them, they're going to go somewhere else, because there is a company out there that's going to meet their needs. There is a leader out there that is going to be able to take them to the levels that they want to go. This is a tough camp. And the reason it's so tough is because it is really the tipping point. You know, the first 2 we've built up to this point. You know, we've worked on getting them to understand the expectations. In camp 1, we've actually helped them to figure out and build their self-esteem and self-confidence so that they can move on and they can get to this level. But as we've talked about, you have to be able to get from the base camp to Camp 1 before you're ever ready to take on Camp 2 or even the next camp. So the ideas behind these is that we're building on the foundation of what came before, so that when they can positively answer yes to all these questions, that they are ready to take on the next level. And I think I talked about this early on in the first one when we talked about what we were going to be doing, is this isn't to help somebody move up their job career, move up the ladder, get the next job. This is to get them to be hugely and highly successful in their current position. And so if they're operating at a high level, then you're ready to give them new tasks. And we're going to talk about the impact of those new tasks and what they're going to do as we go forward. So another assignment for you is that I want you to be answering these questions for yourself as we go along. Because if our opinions aren't even counting, how can you possibly help your team to value their opinions and to recognize their opinions, especially if the people above you don't listen to what you have to say? So yes, can we make a difference in our little corner of the world? Yes, Covey calls it a circle of influence. Influence what you can and let the rest go. It's if we try to focus on things that we have no influence over or no control over, we're not going to be successful. So I want you to evaluate these. And then I want you to go back to your team again, and I want you to talk to them. And I want you to phrase it in such a way that it is more like a touch-base coaching session rather than, you know what, you're not doing the right job, and let's figure out how you can fix that, because people don't want to come to those kind of meetings. Everything we're doing here in this process is to help people grow, feel valued and appreciated, and let them know that we are truly committed to their success. So good luck with that. We're going to be back next week with the next stage, and it's called Camp 3. And I think you're going to find this one a lot of fun. We'll see you soon, and bye.